Said to hit it, all right. Welcome, good morning, everyone, to the County Advisory Tax Limitation Committee. I am Kim Morris with the Chief Deputy County Clerk's Office, and I now call this meeting to order. Let's start with roll call. Dr. Sean Williams with the Intermediate School District Superintendent. Robert Robinson, County Treasurer.
Here.
Blake Mulder, Ways and Means Committee Chairperson.
Here.
Roger Eakin, Board of Commissioners Appointment. Michael Baker, Probate Judge Appointment. Kern Sluchter, Townships Appointment. Okay, now if you guys could please introduce yourself and say a few things about your background and why you're on this committee.
Sure. I'm Sean Williams. I'm the superintendent at Eaton Resa. We provide services to our five local. Sorry. I'm Sean Williams, superintendent at Eaton Resa. We provide services to our local school districts and charter schools. We have three different millages that come through Eaton County. We have our general education millage, special education millage, and CTE millage. And basically, we're a flow through. I mentioned earlier that our revenues and our expenses are exactly the same. Money comes in, it goes right out to the local districts. And so I guess we had our special education millage back in November. That was successful. What that did is it limited the debt that our districts were taking on to provide a unfunded mandate, which is special education in Michigan. And so it took their debt from $6 million collectively to $3 million. And so I think probably some of my perspective might help this committee as we move forward.
Hi, I'm Bob Robinson. I am the very proud treasurer of Eaton County. I am statutorily required to participate in the committee. And as one can imagine, as county treasurer, I probably have unique insights with respect to county finances that others may not. So I'm glad to be here, glad to be your treasurer, and looking forward to conducting business this morning.
Hi there. I'm Blake Mulder. I am a chair of the Ways and Means Committee. Statutorily, it says the Finance Committee's chair is supposed to be at this meeting. I have been on the county board for 14 years. I have watched the county progress, the ups and the downs from the recession of 2008 to the current situation. I'm a member of the Financial Stability Work Group, which has gotten together and made plans, just some suggestions to the full board as to how to keep this county in good financial situation. And quite honestly, we've been working on looking at county finances in depth for several years, and it was the work group that made the recommendation that this committee be put together. So, thank you.
I'm Roger Eakin. I was a commissioner on the county board for a number of years and have been retired from that board for a time. But while I was on the board, I was vice chairman of the board as well as chairman of Ways and Means. So I've got a historical background relative to what's going to be discussed today. So for the most part, I'm going to be listening.
I'm Mike Baker. I'm retired, the former assessor for the city of Eaton Rapids. I'm currently on the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals there.
My name is Kern Sluchter. I'm the supervisor at Windsor Charter Township. The supervisors elected me to this position a few days ago, and I hold a MAI designation, a master's degree in real estate appraisal, so I think that I can bring some perspective as to what the property owners are going to think about this.
Now on to the election of a chairperson. Nominations are now open for the chairperson of the Eaton County Advisory Tax Limitation Committee.
I nominate Blake Mulder.
Second.
Are there any others?
I move Blake is put in that position by acclamation.
Are there any others? Okay, Blake Mulder has been nominated for chairperson of this committee. Oh, sorry, yes. Who would like to second? No, they did. We did. Sean did. Oh, okay. Okay, now on to roll call. Dr. Sean Williams.
Here.
Yes, yes,
Not used to being on this.
that's okay. Robert Robinson,
Yes.
Blake Mulder,
Yes.
Roger Eakin,
Yes.
Michael Baker,
Yes.
Kern Selector.
Yes.
Okay, now, yes, you are taking over.
Thank you, Kim. Kim was impressed into this duty on short notice. She didn't realize she had to do it until about a half an hour ago, and as always, she does a great job. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an agenda before us. What are your wishes?
Move the agenda.
A second?
Moved by Mr. Eakin, supported by Mr. Baker. All those in favor? Opposed? Opposed? Yes.
The motion, we generally typically have discussion. I heard no offer for discussion.
Correct. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Schluchter. Questions or
Our
comments?
agenda calls for limited public comment. I think that before we approve this agenda, we ought to let the public know what the limitations are to that public comment.
As the chair, I will limit their comments to 5 minutes. That work for you?
That works for me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion? Now, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. I think we're all aware of what this committee's been called for, but I'll just give us a few points. Be quick. I'd like to get to the public comment. And we've got some input from staff. Do we want to do that now? What are your thoughts? I don't know, on the agenda. You want to do it
What we had intended was in item number 7 that there
Okay.
would be discussion
at
on
the
each.
discussion, beginning of the discussion? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for all being here. This is, as you understand, a committee that was put together by the Board of Commissioners to discuss the allocations for, the statutory allocations for the townships, the ISD, and the county. Understanding that the purpose of this committee is to make recommendations to the full Board of Commissioners, who would in turn put this ballot language on the ballot. The timing is such that when the full board gets our recommendations, the ballot would be for November of this year. At this point, any recommendations that we make here go to the Board of Commissioners, and essentially these are the upper limits of the allocations. The boards make their own. Boards will do what they're going to do with this suggestion, but for the most part, they are responsible for levying any of the taxes. That's not our job. Our job is to only make the recommendations. So, okay, let's go to some limited public comment. 5 minutes maximum, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Doug Lloyd, and I am your Eaton County prosecutor. Myself, as well as Judge Cunningham and Sheriff Reich, intend to speak this morning, but this morning, one of my employees, Terry Sadler, who is a lifelong resident of Eaton County, came and spoke to me and asked if she could speak for a moment. And the words she expressed to me were something unique and encouraging, and so I asked Terry to actually speak before me, and then we'll speak after. So I would allow Eaton County resident Terry Sadler to speak first.
Thank you. Good morning. As Doug said, I am a lifelong resident of Eaton County as well as an Eaton County employee. Today I speak as a resident, not as an employee. As a resident, I have seen nothing but growth and development in Eaton County. I have seen a significant increase in population, companies, manufacture, jobs, and in the housing market. While Eaton County is heading in the right direction of growth, that growth comes with costs. These are costs that people incur every day. They are not only countywide, but state and nationwide. And many people are feeling the stresses of these costs. This is something that I can understand. But with the growth and development of Eaton County, we need to be able to financially keep up. With that, as we stated in prior meetings, there's going to be a reduction in staff to the citizens of Eaton County. Many people may not or do not think that these cuts will affect them. Those cuts will affect everybody in Eaton County. If it is not you, then it is somebody that you love or lives in the county. Services that could be affected include veteran services, licensing like marriage, CPLs, getting dog licenses, development, zoning, planning, drain, property deeds, treasury, parks and rec. But most important, the reduction in staff will affect Eaton County's courts and law enforcement system, including the prosecuting attorney's office, sheriff's office with 24-hour road patrol on the out county into certain townships, district courts, trial courts for trials and granting judgments, and clerks of the court. These are all essential functions to keep citizens of Eaton County safe and give them the ability to access the governmental functions that they are constitutionally have the right to have. I leave you with this analogy as I think about this, as I have been watching the meetings, the commissioners' meetings, the Ways and Means meetings as a resident of Eaton County. I look at it like this. You build a house in 1978. You want to put money and invest in that house to keep that house modern, up to date. So when you get ready to pass down that house to a loved one or to sell that house, you're going to get the rate of return back. This is what Eaton County needs to do to be able to address the current issue for the growth of the future. The tax limitation would be an investment for the benefits of all citizens in Eaton County. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. As I said, I thought those were poignant words. So I'll keep my words short today. I've been with this county for almost 25 years. During this time, it's been no secret that this county has struggled financially. You've all read the reports, you've seen the numbers, and understand the dire situation the county's faced with. I don't need to add to that. You know where we stand. All 15 board members, Democrats and Republicans, voted unanimously to form the committee to begin this process. And the county has gone above and beyond to get out in front of the people, the residents, to explain our troubles. That is no easy work, but it's necessary work for the county, for our staff, and for the services we provide. Without additional revenue, I can almost guarantee that there will be drastic changes in what services we can provide, specifically in public safety. Whether my office grows even more short-staffed and has to limit the cases that we take on, or the sheriff's office has to eliminate a non-constitutionally mandated service, or the courts have to just close up because they don't have the personnel to actually be here every day. That's what is at risk. The county has 400 employees who serve our residents, and they're the backbone of the county, and they are our most valuable assets. The turnover of employees in every office in the last 2 years has taken extensive institutional knowledge that impacts services. And I can tell you, because for some of you, you've listened to it for years. Mr. Eakin, you've listened to it a long time ago. I'm going to tell you that every office in this county has the same story. That's why I'm here to support this proposal. I want to thank all of you for serving on this committee, and for evaluating the financial needs of the counties, the townships, and ISD.
Good morning. I'm Tom Reich. I'm your sheriff here in Eaton County. I want to thank you for participating in this committee. What can I say? I mean, the county is in dire need of additional revenue right now. I feel that at the sheriff's office, with vacancies that I can't fill due to the fact that I'm competing with other agencies who make more money for their officers. I've also lost numerous people to other agencies who pay more. So it's a continuous battle for me. Right now, we have 14 vacancies. It was up to 18. It's going to be 18 again when I have some more retirements this year. This county, I'm very proud of. I think everybody in this who are employees have done a great job. My staff at the Sheriff's Office have done a great job. We are leaders in sheriff's departments across the state. We've made leaps and bounds with technology and training, but I'm fearful. And I hope you support this limitation, tax limitation. It's going to be well worth it. The Sheriff's Office several months ago came up with an idea of doing a deputy paramedic program. I've seen the need of it. Right now we have Eaton Area EMS. Delta Township has their own through the fire department. Windsor Township has their own. I believe Benton Township has their own. But I think the out-county residents deserve a faster response with medical assistance. I can't tell you how much I'm very proud of this county. I think Connie Sobey has done a great job as a controller. I think our commissioners have done a great job. They've seen that we are in need of additional revenue, and I believe this, if supported, will go into the November ballot and hopefully get passed by the public. So thank you again, and let's move forward.
Good morning. My name is Jan Cunningham, and I'm a circuit court judge, but I am also the chief judge of the trial courts. And I don't usually come and speak before the board, and Ms. Slade and Prosecutor Lloyd and the sheriff have echoed the sentiments that I have, but I would like to share with you specifically as it relates to the courts that we have made cuts over the last several years, and we have consolidated functions to try to adjust to the financial struggles that Eaton County has faced. At this time, there are no further adjustments that we can make. We struggle to provide the necessary level of service to the public. One struggle is being made difficult because additional requirements are placed on the court by the Michigan Supreme Court over which we have no control and we are required to meet. This is especially in the area of technology and diversion. And as our employees struggle to meet these demands, they are doing it in crowded, inadequate workspace. I too am proud of Eaton County, and I know that Eaton County is a great place to work. We have wonderful employees. They understand the importance of what they do every day and how that directly impacts the lives of the Eaton County residents that come to use our courts. And even though it is a great place to work, we struggle to maintain employees because we are not competitive in our wages and our benefits. That struggle becomes even more difficult as we try to hire people when other employees leave for reasons of retirement or going to the county next door, Ingham, with which we directly compete with and pay better wages. My request to you today is simple. I'm asking you to help us provide a working environment with competitive wages so that we can continue to deliver the quality of services that the Eaton County residents have come to expect and they deserve. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for serving on this committee. I know it's very difficult. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'll be brief. I want to thank you for being here and serving. As you know, Blake mentioned earlier that we had a financial stability work group that's been working on this for a while. And we came to the conclusion that we needed to get to this point just because of the situation you've heard earlier. Before this meeting and building up to this, we had several town halls. And in those town halls, we had some internal town halls with employees, and employee after employee said they like working here, but the pay is not competitive with other counties. And so they want to stay, but financial reasons often takes them elsewhere. We had some town halls with township officials. They came here, and that was very good. We got to hear from their perspective, and it was a good meeting, the first time we ever got all the townships together. But I want to say one thing, and that is we have a lot of good, talented people that work here, and we want to keep them. As Sheriff said, I'm also fearful of what would happen if we could not keep those people and people to replace them. It'd be very difficult. But with that, also, there was a lot of work that went into place, that took place throughout this last year. And without Controller Silby and her staff, this really wouldn't happen because it took a lot of work, a lot of time, and they are also understaffed, so thank you. But again, thank you for being here and thank you for serving.
Anyone else? There will be another opportunity at the end of the agenda for public comment. Thank you. Let's go on to some discussion about the current tax allocation and some input from staff and some, Mr. Dawson has some information. I think we have generally had a lot of the financial stability work group's information has gone to the public. It's been available on the website. We've passed it out to everyone that was interested. A lot of work has gone into it. The Financial Stability Work Group actually started when Mr. Eakin was on the board some years ago. And, you know, we've been looking at this, we've looked at our possibilities, and at this point, we finally reached the point where action is necessary. So, Mr. Dawson?
Okay. So do we want to start off, just every member of this committee, you have a packet. It has a copy of a presentation that the county's prepared to summarize a report, which was much more lengthy. So we're endeavoring to leave the time today for you all to have discussions and questions on this. There's also a blank action item. So if anybody wants to make a motion, that's the statutory framework that that would look like. We included few-page summary of our capital improvement plan. We didn't print the whole thing, but if any members of this committee want the whole capital improvement plan, we can produce that for the infrastructure needs of the county. And then the copy of the full May report, which was 30 pages, and a copy of a 2018 analysis that was done previously prior to COVID when the Financial Stability Work Group at that time had analyzed the needs of the county. So before we get to the county presentation, I think this was an opportunity to see if townships wanted to come up and do a presentation or have discussions. So I'll defer to their representative to see if that's something they'd like to do.
I have sent emails out to the other supervisors, and I've gotten no comment or response from them. So I guess the townships at this point are going to remain silent.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your leadership in that role as well. So the next is an opportunity for the ISD as well. So Sean, I welcome you to speak to the needs of the of your district.
Thank you. Yeah, I think what I would like to do, just kind of highlight a few things. So that 0.2 mils represents the general education budget for Eaton-Risa. Sorry, excuse me. And, you know, just to kind of how ISD budgets work, it really is our district's budgets. They own those funds. They have complete input on how those funds are dispensed, and each one of our local school boards vote on how the funds are dispersed. And so the big items that come out of that fund are school safety, general education supports, which are math, English, science, and social studies, school substitutes, adult education, and truancy are the big ones. And I have to say, on the macro level, we have been thoroughly, pleased with the amount of support that we get from Eaton County government. We have a great relationship with the Sheriff's Department, the Prosecutor's Office, Treasury, and just very helpful people. I have to say that we are really concerned about public safety, given the light that we've had in the environment and education. We 100% rely on the Sheriff's Department to keep our schools safe. And that is first and foremost our biggest responsibility as educators. They coordinate all first responses to our local districts. And unfortunately, the word is out on the street that coverage at certain points of the day are not as heavy as we would prefer, especially when you figure from the north to the south borders of the county is pretty large. And so that concerns me because in my experiences, bad actors quickly figure out where there is lack of supervision. They also know where lack of prosecution is. So we're definitely concerned, and I think I can speak for all of the superintendents in Eaton County, that we really need your support around public safety.
Thank you. Thank you. And before we move into the county piece, I did just want to state so everybody knows the mills that are listed on the agenda are the original ones that were set in 1978. So all groups, the townships, the intermediate school district, and Eaton County has been subject to Headley rollbacks. So the amount that we're allowed to levy at this moment was diminished by 3 rollbacks that took place and was outlined in the report. For that, as we transition to the county, I'll open it for Controller Sobey to do an opening.
I just wanted to thank, on behalf of the county, all of you for being here. For years, this county, and I've been here for 36 years, has worked to balance its budget. We have done so on open positions, on the backs of employees who have taken less pay to come here and do appreciate the opportunity to work here. We're now at the point that we have to seek additional revenue. We've done a significant amount of analysis. We've continued to do that over the last several years. I've also been a part of that financial stability work group. So I've seen where we've gone. The revenues are decreasing, and the expenses are going to continue to go up. That's a fact of life. So the outline that you received from the financial stability work group was a detailed report. We tried to do that as a group, and staff did work really hard. Thank you all. That resulted in the board to form this committee, which is significant to us as staff, that they took a detailed look at this and realized the need. So I do want to turn it over to Ben again so that he can go through a brief PowerPoint. And we'd like for you to hold your questions until the end. But we do welcome questions, the difficult ones as well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So the presentation's on screen for those that are in the audience on either TV, and then for those at home, you can see it right there. So we thank you for being here and for your considerations of the county's financial needs. We can move to the overview. Logan, is it moving? Oh, great. All right, so the outline of this is going to be pretty brief. Like we said, we did a lot of the work on the front end. The May 10th report came out, and hopefully everybody here's had a chance to read it. I know it was provided upon folks' appointments or the formation of this committee. So we're going to talk about financial projections. We're going to take a look at expense growth compared to inflation, expenditures and revenue, have a discussion about ARPA funding, which is America Rescue Plan Act funding that was COVID dollars that were provided by the federal government, and that relationship to the county fund balance, which is the equivalent of the general fund money that carries over season to season and allows the board to make funding decisions as they evaluate. Influences on revenue, Headley and Prop A, service levels and expense by function. So we'll just dive on in. So financial projections, this was out of the executive summary. County does not have the revenue to maintain current service levels. Currently, the projected shortfalls to be over 1.3 million short in the next budget. I will say we're building that budget now, and it will potentially be more. And those will be discussions at Ways and Means as we move forward. But this was just an initial projection based on historic. We're building the actual detailed budget as we speak. This shortfall will continue to compound year after year if more revenue is not identified. Without additional revenue, cuts in service and staffing will be necessary. I'll speak on this in one way. If we lose institutional knowledge, if we have to make cuts and later got the revenue, it will take a long time to rebuild back the quality character. And we would almost have like an apprenticeship model where we would have to get people with no experience and build it back. And for specialties like law enforcement, the prosecutor's office, attorneys, that is a very heavy lift. And so a lot of us have already been wrangling that the last 2 years. Next slide. This next one is just to illustrate expense growth for the county compared to inflation. We chose 3 categories that tend to beat or sometimes exceed inflation. So as you can tell, had these expenses grown over this 10-year period at the rate of inflation, they would have been less than 12 million. But in actuality, they're closer to 16 million. And so while we all struggle with the bite of inflation, this is just showing that this is what the county has had to navigate previously when they've made cuts, deferred maintenance and infrastructure that are critical to the safety and the ability for staff to continue to provide services. Next slide. Next is expenditures and revenues. This one is kind of outlines exactly where our revenue and expenses are. We took into account there are GASB changes, which are the accounting rules. So those are marked out so you can tell what's actual cash flow versus what's a bookkeeping type of piece. But as you can see, the trend is that expenses continue to outpace revenue. And we show in the blue what revenue would have been without pandemic relief funds. There's an ARPA slide, but we would not have been able to make it to this meeting if we did not have lost revenue that we could rely on in the prior 3 budget cycles. So that kind of bought us time to assess what was the best path forward. Next slide. This is the graph I was telling you about. As you can see, of the ARPA funds that were allocated to the county, this was the distribution of how they were spent. The green is that revenue replacement. That's the lost revenue I referenced. And there's a direct relationship, as you can see, to the county fund balance and what we're projected to look at in the coming 2 fiscal years without any additional revenue. So I'm going to spend a little more time on this because the table that's listed there wasn't in the May report. It took us some time to put this together. But generally, Headley rollbacks and Proposal A are things that govern what property value local units of government are allowed to levy. And when Prop A took effect, it created a state equalized value, and then it created a taxable value. So originally, SEV, the equalized value, used to be what you were able to levy up to. Since 1994, that gap has led to a $23.2 million revenue loss for the county. That's cumulative. And the gap between taxable value and the equalized value is currently sitting at 31.7%. So what that means is as the market appreciates in value, almost 32% of that is not taxable value that makes it to the county, to townships, or to the ISD because of how that law works. The loss of revenue for the county due to TIFA districts, which are tax increment financing districts. You know them as downtown development authorities, corridor authorities. We have a number of them in Eaton County. Since 2019, that's been a $3.8 million loss for the county. What that means is when a mill is levied before anything reaches the county, there are a number of groups that get funded first off of the top, and those TIFA districts are funded before anything comes to the county. So again, talking about that development, you see this battery plant in Delta, you see these different things. That doesn't translate to funding to the county to continue to provide expanded services to meet that growth. The lost revenue due to county exemption since 2019 is estimated at $1 million and will continue to grow. Every commissioner is supportive of taking care of our veterans. They're heroic in their service and very supportive of the intent of this law. The problem being, this was an unfunded mandate that was placed on us by the state of Michigan. So similar to how Chief Judge had talked about, there are things that occur at the state level that we don't have control over, but it has a direct impact on our ability to provide services. That number will continue to grow as you see, as it has since 2019. The next is lost revenue due to a Renaissance zone. Renaissance zones are like a tax increment district, but they can formed by the state. And that battery plant in Delta is one. That's going to be in place for 18 years. This year, it was $221,000 lost revenue for the county. That will double when the facility is complete and it reaches its full maturity for market value. And you could just see in a 6-year period, these 4 categories alone have cost the county $12.3 million. So it's all just to have the discussion that what's brought us here today is largely being played out all across the state of Michigan. There are a number of counties that are struggling in similar positions, and a lot of it is framework that's been put in place at the state level that we all have to work through. Next slide. Service levels by function. Public safety represents 35.1% of the county's expenses. We continue to experience those hiring and retention difficulties, and that has led to the reduction in shift coverage for large portions of the county, as well as increased overtime costs to try to continue to provide coverage with the staffing that we have. Retirement costs alone have increased $4.3 million in the past 5 years, which represents a 135.2% increase. Again, a mandate by the state of Michigan is pensions have to be 100% funded by 2038. And that's been a significant burden on all localities. And that's what's driving that. We've actually reduced our pension benefit. We've eliminated our retirees' health. We've gone through the responsible process to take care of it. But when a deadline of 20 years is set, every year that goes by, the obligation on the county grows of what we have to put in to meet that 100% by that year. The county has contributed $42.9 million to MERS in the last 10 years, and of that, close to $3 to $4 million, it was additional contributions above the minimum required contribution. County sits currently at 62% funded. Again, that mandate from the state of Michigan and market forces, we are currently at 62, but we were at 70% funded in 1996. Next. This is a service levels and 10-year snapshot of expenses. This is to give you kind of an idea of what the budget looked like in fiscal year 2014 and what it was in 2023. We had 374.5 total full-time equivalent FTEs, with 279 of them being supported by general fund. Snap forward to today, it's 384.4. So as you can see, we have not added staff significantly over this duration of time. And it should be noted, after the 2008 crisis, the county reduced staff significantly in response to the economic peril that the country was going through at the time. So not only have we not fully rebounded from pre-2008, we're here, and that has not translated to a savings. Expense categories across the board, as you can see over there by the percentiles, have increased over that period of time. So while the expenses have grown substantially, the county has not increased staff due to constraints on the general fund. So summary, county's projected to be 1.3 shortfall in the upcoming fiscal year, which would be compounded to 23.4 in the next 2 fiscal years. So without additional revenue, the county will be forced to reduce levels of service it provides to address these shortfalls. Reductions could eliminate vacant positions, employee layoffs, reduction in hours of operation, reduction in hours for staff, and/or the sale of assets. We do have some buildings, and we may get to the point where the board has to make the decision to start selling them off. Apart from securing additional revenue, the only path forward is a significant reduction in county staff and services, which will impact all residents of Eaton County. And I'll say it again. If we lose a significant portion and folks decide to come back and fund the county later, it will take years to rebuild the talent, the skill, and the dedication that we have now. So I appreciate everybody for being here and for letting us talk about our needs. Next slide. And this just shows what the separate tax allocation looks like. The township allocation as it was set in 1978, where everybody rests with rollbacks, and the recommendation from the Financial Stability Work Group, which would be to authorize the board to have the ability to levy the remaining 3 that are allowed under the Constitution. Again, that decision to levy is made every year by each board. It's not an automatic levy, the same way a lot of townships choose not to levy their administrative fee. It would just give the board the ability to do that if necessary. Next slide. And this is a draft separate tax limitation proposal, matches very similar to the action that's in your packet. And that concludes our discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Any questions for staff? Thank you. That brings us to the point at hand, which really is to fill in the blanks for that separate tax limitation proposal, the one that is the last on the screen. I'd like discussion to follow the agenda for the areas the blanks that need to be filled in. And I would like to start with the township allocation, which currently is 1 mil. Now that's, the townships, this is for all general law townships. Charter townships create their own funding mechanism, and they're not party to this particular allocation. So what we're proposing here is for, say, general law townships. Now, each of them uses their allocation in a different way. They've been rolled back at different amounts depending on a lot of tax issues, and some of them levy, some of them don't. What we're asking for is just to reset the stage more or less and put the townships back on their 1%, or I'm sorry, their 1 mil allocation. And I'm open to discussion on this point. Mr. Robinson.
Yes, for clarification, Mr. Chair, can you walk us through what the 3.29 allocation suggested by Mr. Dawson is and how that relates to the amounts being apportioned here? Are we saying that there's 3, that this committee can allocate 3 and divide that 3? I'm just looking for clarification on that.
The total allocation, that's the maximum that is allowed, is 9.7 mils. Okay, so that's the max, and that actually gets filled in on the ballot proposal. What we're looking, and currently we're allocating basically 5.5, 0.2, and 1. That's what the current allocation is before rollbacks. So we can play with all of the 9.7, but we're proposing that we follow the formula that historically has been there, with the townships receiving their 1 mil allocation and followed up ISD with their historical 0.2 allocation. The remainder, we're proposing, with discussion and with your input, going to the county. Is that clear?
That clarifies it, yes, thank you.
So I'm looking for consensus, more or less. Are we good with looking at the township's 1 mil allocation? And this will automatically roll back if it were, again, this is going to go to the ballot, and we're not making that tax change here. We're telling the county board to put this on the ballot at this recommendation. So this would roll back, put the county's allocation back up to 1 mil from wherever it's been rolled back, the townships. Again, each of those are different.
When is this proposed to be on the ballot?
The timing of this is such that If we were to make a recommendation to the county board today, they will follow up with it at their next full board meeting in June, and they'll probably create the ballot recommendation in July. Is that the plan?
You could do that at the June meeting, the
Or
board
we could do it right at June.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Schluchter.
So by recommending this 1 mil and assuming it passes in the November election, the township boards then would just have a little more freedom in levying more tax, but wouldn't be obligated to. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
That is correct. I'm not totally familiar with the township situation. They don't really levy, they budget, and whatever they budget is the number that's used, but that's all in statute.
Actually, the way the law works is we have to set the millage, and that's set before the budget's actually approved, but, you know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
goofy.
convoluted. So this will offer a little breathing room for the townships that have had major rollbacks. And again, that's, each township is different, and so they have to speak to
Right, I understand that.
it as such.
I just wanted to clarify that one point about it being mandatory.
Correct. So yes, we're looking at getting it to the county board, and they would propose getting it on the November ballot.
I assume then if it were to pass in November, that it would take effect immediately on the fiscal year upcoming?
It would actually be levied the next year, which is collected in the summer taxes in June.
Do we have a projection at all at how long this particular increase would assist the county?
That is another, well, the period of this allocation is something that we'll discuss, but in terms of the long-term financial stability of the county, first of all, we don't know what future boards are going to levy. We don't know what future boards are planning on doing, so we can't speak to that. But the work of the Financial Stability Group really has indicated that this would allow the county board to put themselves on footing that would keep stability long into the future. So this is a way to fix a problem. And depending on how judicious future boards are with that their levying power, we'll leave it to them.
Long into the future, that's an interesting statement. How long? Can you give me some idea what we're talking about? How long will the financial stability of this county be reestablished once this is passed? If it's passed, let's put it that way.
I'll venture to say that if this were passed, the financial stability is secure for the county in all of the next budget cycles. When I say that, we only project in our budget cycles at the county about 3 to 4 years ahead, and any further than that has always been pretty much just guessing. Mr. Robinson?
I do understand, Mr. Chair, that we will specifically be discussing the length of time for the allocation, so we will get into conversation about that. I wanted to mention, with respect to the 1 mil for townships, I have had conversations with quite a few township people. None of them indicated any indication to need to increase an allocation at the local level. This moving forward, the 1 mil would give them the additional breathing space of a Headley rollback. So considering those conversations, I would be in favor of moving forward with the 1.0 mil.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
Is that a motion?
I will make a motion.
I'll second.
We can do that. we'll move each of these items, and then at the end, we'll move to the full board when we have the entire action items figured out. So the motion on the floor is to put the county allocation at 1 mil.
Township.
Township allocation, 1 mil. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now let's move on to this discussion. Let's go to the intermediate school district.
So I guess sorry. So one of the things that we pride ourselves at Eaton RESA is we're one of the most efficiently run, if not the most efficiently run RESA in the state. Our partnerships with Lansing Community College and the way that we fund special education in our local districts, we're able to do things that a lot of folks aren't able to do. So our input-output's pretty amazing. But it's also not lost on me that we just went to voters 8 months ago for our special education millage, which didn't fix the problem, but it did alleviate a lot of the stress for our general education budgets in our local districts, where they were taking funds that were meant for all kids and they were funding special education programs that the state was not funding. And so I guess my question is in our gratuity towards the citizens that supported that, what would be the effect to leave Eaton RESA off of this initiative and focus on the township and Eaton County? So instead of asking, which essentially is, because we're at 0.67, so it's essentially we're asking for a restoration to 2. What if we were able to just stay with our 0.67? That way the voters know that we appreciate the support they gave us in our special education millage, and then also would be more favorable towards supporting both the township and the county.
I understand what you're saying. That's a very difficult message to translate it to the public. Now, obviously, you don't have to assess the entire 0.2 mil. That's your prerogative at the ISD. If we were actually to put that in this language, the reasoning for it, I think, would be pretty opaque. I mean, you're thanking the voters for giving you the last override, but I don't know that the voters are smart, but I'm not really sure that they would link these two things together. And so I appreciate the thought, but I'm open to what the rest of the group wants to say.
I think it's a generous offer from the perspective of the ISD just getting an increase, but it would complicate what the main goal is for what this group is trying to do.
I would agree with that.
Well, we do not want to complicate matters, so I think this sounds like a good plan.
So following our pattern now, we'll look for a motion for the ISD's allocation. One of you would be better might move it. Rather
I'll
than
make the motion.
moved by Schluchter, supported by Robinson. Questions or comments? Yes.
Under discussion for this, it appears to me that this is going to be a very, very involved public relations campaign, and I don't envy your position at all from the ISD. If this fails in November, we're going to have a train wreck.
I'll address that.
I'd like to know what Plan B is.
Plan B is because this is the constitutional allocation, Plan B is everything stays the same. This does not, if this fails in November, the existing allocations stay where they're at, and so nothing changes.
But we have just heard
Oh,
at several meetings the disaster that the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's office, all these important offices are going to face. I really think we need Plan B. Just,
well, timing is everything.
yeah, exactly. And
Getting
our
things-
people are hurting
Getting
right now.
thing-
The
Getting
economy
things
is
on the
not good.
ballot, you know, we've got an opportunity for one question, and that would be this. And this, beyond our duties here to talk about that, but I think that's going to be up to people to make sure that this ballot question is resolved in a positive way for this group. And that's, again, work that has to be done, not by the county, but by individuals who would be interested in this, in making sure that this happens. So, but for the,
Hey, how is this going to be presented to the county voter?
well, and that's,
Is it going to be each one of these groups tackling this on their own? For example, our public safety is going to get together and spend money to,
that will all have to be worked out after this is determined. It is not something that, again, this group, our mission here is to.
I understand that.
Is to fill out these allocation numbers and leave it to others to figure out the next steps.
Who are the others? I want
It'd be us.
You're talking about the Board of Commissioners?
No. Well, the board can be involved, but bottom line, it is getting people out to understand what this initiative is about. Mr. Schlechter?
Real quick answer to Roger's question. We have a lot of campaign finance law and things like this that has to be taken into account. As for the county actively getting involved in a campaign and spending county dollars on it, that's not going to happen.
It's not.
I mean, you're looking at essentially having somebody very independent of the county government setting up a PAC, and I'm sure you're going to have some opposition to this thing. I'm just absolutely certain of that. So when I pose the question, what's Plan B, I'm really serious. This is going to be a problem. This is going to be this is going to be a huge political campaign to get this approved.
Thank you, Mr. Schlechter. We are aware of that, those of us on the other side of this. Okay, we have a motion. Did we vote on that? We're on the question. This is for the township allocation, or for the ISD allocation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next, we go to the county allocation. This is one that Mr. Dawson addressed, as did the chief judge and the prosecutor and the sheriff.
This will take the county.
This would take the county to 8.5. That's
With the
recommendation.
9.7.
9.7 is the total of all of those.
I'll move it.
Moved by Eakin, supported by Robinson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The next issue is the duration. This can be set up as, some counties do this as a, we had a long discussion with our council about this, and who counsels many counties on this very subject. And there are counties that do this every few years. They set up a board similar to this, and they set up their allocations. Our council was pretty clear. They thought it should be set up as an indefinite time period, saying that if we wanted to change it, any board wanted to set up a time period or change the allocations, that they would have the opportunity to do so in the future. But at this point, on the way the ballot language, the question will read is that this would be an indefinite allocation rather than breaking it down to yearly or 5 years or whatever, like others, like some counties do. So I would be comfortable following our council's direction and making this in an indefinite period. Mr. Schluchter.
I think that, first of all, I don't know the reason why council made that recommendation other than it would cause a situation where it was automatic. I think that if we limited this to 4 or maybe 5 years, where the citizens had the right and the opportunity to have public comment, to speak to these reallocations, I think we would be doing the citizens a justice. And I also think that we would create for the county a tremendous campaign issue. I think you're going to have a problem if you do it forever. But I think if you put it out there as though it can be revisited from time to time at a period of time, I think you're going to be much further ahead.
I appreciate that. I believe if the difference is that if it were in a situation, if it were voted down where it's got a certain period, that it would actually disappear, all funding would disappear, versus in that situation, there would be no funding. But
I'd like to see a legal opinion on that.
but I may be wrong. Do you guys have a call on that?
Yeah, so I think.
Am I wrong?
My understanding is right now we're in an indefinite period. So if this fails, we revert to an indefinite period. If you allocate moving forward to be on a cycle, you don't default back to indefinite because you've moved on to a cycle going forward. So while the risk of the loss doesn't exist right now, if it was, say, 6 years and it was voted down, the default would be back to the authorization that was only for 6 years, is my understanding. We
The
can,
timing.
yeah.
Timing would just be default,
Yeah.
Pardon me, it would default to the 5-5.
For today's purposes, because it's indefinite right now. But if you vote to move to a cyclical, changing it every so many years, that's the new default because you've changed the 1978, if that makes sense. So in the future, this was moved and it was passed. 6 years later, it's evaluated and it fails, you don't default back to the 1978, you default back to the 2024 allocation, is my understanding of how council explained
That
it.
makes sense. That makes better sense to me.
I can actually confirm that. As we went through legal counsel for our millage, we had to use the language of an increase. Otherwise, we would run the jeopardy in 10 years to having the whole special ed millage fall off. It became problematic because the language was really convoluted because we were doing two different things. We were restoration and then an increase. And really, most of the complaints that I received from the public was, this is really confusing ballot language. It wasn't really about the millage. So, yeah, I concur.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only problem I see with by not going indefinite is that, as Supervisor Schluchter has mentioned, it would seem to put us into a major public relations effort every, 3, 4 years, 5 years, versus, grinding it out with one initiative, which is going to be tough enough. Looking at resources and how they're allocated and apportioned, as a communications professional, which is what I did prior to being elected treasurer, I think that could cause a lot of trouble and a lot of confusion So I think that going with a indefinite time period, to me, makes more sense from a resource perspective. Now, that being said, we have to consider what the perspective of and will of the voters are. And I don't know what the will of the voters are in that respect. Would they be more apt to approve it on a short-term basis or more apt to approve it on a long-term basis? I'd like to hear more from other members of the committee about that. But from the way I see it, I think that it makes most sense to go with an indefinite period. It's an uphill battle. It's walking uphill, steep one. But I would hate to see everything grind to a halt every 3 or 4 years. Who knows what's going to happen in another 3 or 4 years? That's the world we've been living in for the last 3 or 4 years. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
My assumption after reading the report is that this is potentially the best option that you see that you have to potentially gain this increase that you've never had before. And I think you need to try now because it may be even more difficult in the future.
I would find it difficult, I would hate to go into a shortened cycle of 10 or 5 years for the county board to have to continually go through the work to renew it. I understand your point, and I think it's a good one, but I would hate to impose that on the future boards. I think they're going to have their hands full making sure that the county is run effectively and making sure that these monies are used effectively and allocated appropriately. So I would prefer to see an indefinite period. If they find reason to change it, then let them do so.
What kind of a change are we talking about? I mean, wouldn't the change be to reduce it?
They could. They could reduce it. They could change the duration. They can do whatever. I mean, that's the work of future boards. And we can't tell them what to do or how to do it.
Is there a mandated ceiling?
Yes. I mean, of mills?
Yes.
Yes, that is the 9.7.
So they can't increase beyond 9.7
Correct.
without a constitutional change of some kind.
Correct. Statutory change of some sort.
Statutory change, sorry.
Okay, we're in discussion for the county portion of going to 8.5.
No,
Who was the maker of the
3%.
motion?
it's already passed.
The duration, or we're past that, we're on the duration. Keep me on line here. We're in discussion for the duration. And I'll look for a motion.
I'll move it
We're indefinite.
for indefinite.
I'll support.
Moved by Eakin, supported by Robinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Now we're to the point where we've got the form filled out. And honestly, this is what appears, essentially what appears on the ballot. I guess I didn't explain that very much, but the ballot language for this particular limitation proposal is statutorily defined, and it pretty much comes up to something that looks like this form right here. And that'll be in if we move it onto the full board, then there, of course, will take the next step. Will that actually be the ballot language, Ben?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. We always debate questions and have council. This came out of council. This is one of those things that the board will not have any, they can't change it. Okay, I'll look for a motion to move this on to the county board. A recommendation.
So moved.
Mr. Baker,
Support.
Mr. Eakin. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I would like to thank all of you for taking your time out to be here. I know it was a beautiful summer day, and you probably all had better things to do. But I appreciate your work as citizens and your help. And at this point, we'll put this to the board and make plans for that afterwards. So, Mr. Dawson, comment?
Was just going to say, I think they're finalizing the minutes
Yep,
because
we need to have,
because this body,
Or public comment, too.
yes, we have another public comment. I wanted to give the clerk a few minutes to put her minutes together so that we can finalize those. Mr. Schlechter?
I understand that, but I think we probably, because I was a little confused on the agendas because I saw two of them at one time. If we approve the meeting minutes before the final public comment, then the people that choose to speak are not recorded in the minutes.
You are correct on that.
I make a motion to amend the agenda to approve the minutes after the final public comment.
I'll support.
Okay, moved by Mr. Schlechter, supported by Mr. Robinson. Is that right? Who did it? Welcome to the seat. You can't tell who's speaking. To amend the agenda for public comment to happen now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay, an opportunity for second public comment. And please state your name for the minutes.
Good morning, my name's Jim Ruff. For fairness, I want you to know that I am running for the 10th District Commission seat. And I have an extensive background from the city of Lansing. I chose to live in Eaton County when I was summarily almost dictated to live in the city of Lansing. But that was before school of choice and a lot of different things that go on with families. While I appreciate greatly the efforts that have been put into this these packets of information, both the budgets and that, I would encourage that it gets down to the simplicity of dollars and cents. While these are all very difficult concepts to relay to the public, I think it has to be simplified much greater. Like today, knowing how much money goes into a township or a county and what that means if it's being reallocated as it is, that doesn't talk dollars and cents to people. And that's what people are having to go through at this time, is counting pennies, their own pennies. And so I think it behooves, the other aspect of this is my understanding, just like with the township section, where that 0.2, or excuse me, the 1 mil, the townships do not have to collect that much. Is that correct? It's my understanding. They're set at a limit. And so it behooves the township trustees to evaluate what they're going to need in the coming year and not just spend it because it's been authorized. Well, if the same is true for the county, then if it's as an indefinite period, it will be imperative for future commissioners to be responsible on a yearly basis and not just throw everything against the wall, because that's going to be a problem in the future. And we've seen that in the past, my understanding, with some of the contract negotiations that have occurred in the past that have had to be rescinded, had to be reset to save funds for the remaining county. And so while this may be set at an indefinite period, we also have to understand that elections have an impact, and contracts have an impact for employees. And so I've been on both sides of that as an employee and as a manager. And as such, you have to weigh those impacts, and that will be very important for the commissioners in the future, as well as the administrators of the county, because not always what's good for today is going to be helpful for tomorrow. And that will be a very important aspect on how this is addressed. And I think it will take a commitment by the commissioners that when, especially now that commissioners are going to be on 4-year terms, that during that 4-year term, minimally, we're going to be looking at doing what we can with what we believe is necessary for that year in collections and so on, as we look from year to year. And so it really, I believe, while I appreciate all the data that's in this, I think it's overwhelming to the public. And it has to be simplified. The message has to be simplified, and to make this something that can get the buy-in that's necessary for it to be approved, as it's desired by not only the staff of the county, but also by hopefully the citizens, because security is so important to this county, and especially in its location. And because when you need it, right? And so it's very important that way. I appreciate my impact or my interaction with county employees. I've had to work with the county clerk's office often enough and so on, and with different offices. So I'm pleased with the staff. They're always very pleasant. And so I give that comment as well, and appreciate the opportunity to be here and to address this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Kim, are you ready with the minutes?
Yes.
Would you like to read them back, please?
Okay. The Eaton County Tax Limitation Committee met in special session at the county facilities in the city of Charlotte, Thursday, June 6, 2024, including the availability of virtual attendance by the public. Chief Deputy Kim Morris called the meeting to order at 10 o'clock. Roll call. Who present? Dr. Sean Williams, Intermediate School District Superintendent. Robert Robinson, County Treasurer. Blake Mulder, Ways and Means Committee Chairperson. Roger Eakin, Board of Commissioners Appointment. Michael Baker, Probate Judge Appointment, and Kern Schluchter, Townships Appointment. Absent, none. Chief Deputy Morris asked for nominations for Chairperson of the Tax Limitation Committee. Mr. Eakin nominated Mr. Blake Mulder. Dr. Williams supported. There were no further nominations for Chairperson. A roll call vote was taken with 6 voting aye and none voting nay. Motion carried. Mr. Eakin moved the approval of the agenda as presented, seconded by Dr. Williams. Mr. Mulder noted that comment will be limited to 5 minutes. Motion carried. Mr. Mulder spoke about the purpose of the committee. Public comment, Terry Sadler, Prosecutor Lloyd, Sheriff Reich, Chief Judge Cunningham, and Commissioner Chairman Mott spoke in favor of the tax limitation proposal. Discussion held on the current tax limitation allocation. Deputy Administrator, Human Resources Director Dawson asked Mr. Schluchter and Dr. Williams if they had any comments from the townships or the intermediate school district at this time. Mr. Schlechter stated he reached out to township supervisors and they have no comment at this time. Dr. Williams gave a brief overview of the intermediate school district funding and stressed the importance of public safety in the county. A brief presentation was given by Mr. Dawson and County Controller Administrator Sobey of the State of County. Mr. Robinson moved the township allocation of 1.00 mil. Mr. Schlechter supported. Motion carried. Mr. Schlechter moved the intermediate school district allocation of 0.20 mil. Mr. Robinson supported. Discussion held. Motion carried. Mr. Eakin moved the County of Eaton allocation of 8.50 mils. Mr. Robinson supported. Motion carried. Mr. Eakin moved to approve the separate tax limitation proposal. Mr. Robinson supported. Motion carried. Mr. Eakin moved to approve the separate tax limitations be established for an indefinite period. Mr. Robinson supported. Discussion held. Motion carried. Mr. Baker, what do you? Move to approve. Mr. Baker moved to approve the separate and established the separate tax limitation proposal to the Eaton County Board of Commissioners. Mr. Eakin supported. Motion carried. Mr. Schlechter moved to amend the agenda to move the approval of the minutes to after public comment. Mr. Robinson supported. Motion carried. Public comment. Jim Ruff spoke in opposition of the tax limitation proposal. And then we are there. Yes? I didn't speak in opposition. So you want me just to speak of the proposal?
Spoken
Okay.
reference to.
Spoken reference to. Okay, Mr. Jim Ruff spoke in reference to the tax limitation proposal. And that is it. Now we're to the motion of the minutes and adjournment.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Support.
Mr. Schlechter, Mr. Eakin. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Again, thank you for all serving today. I appreciate your being here and taking the time out. Thank you in the audience for coming and visiting and giving us your input. Now the hard work falls on us. But this is going to go to the Ways and Means and then to the full board. On
June 20th.
On June the 20th, the full board. I don't think it goes to Ways and Means, does it? Doesn't matter. Okay, thank you, everyone. We adjourned.
It's gonna